Ladies and gentlemen, so help me introduce all the panel members with a big round of applause. In sequence, I would first like to call on stage Dr. Ranjan Mitra, Head Analytical Development R&D Center, Dabur. Dr. Mitra, welcome to the India Food Nutrition Summit and Awards. Joining him next, we have Dr. Kriti Soni, Head Research and Development, Kapiva, Ayurveda. A big round of applause to Dr. Soni. Dr. Soni, welcome to the India Food Nutrition Summit and Awards. Joining next, we have Nitika Vig, Nutrition Manager from Marico. Can we have a big round of applause for Nitika? Nitika, welcome back once again. Joining them, our next panel member, Mr. Rajeev Tyagi, Chief Operating Officer from Metrohm India Private Limited. A big round of applause to Mr. Rajeev. Rajeev, welcome to the India Food Nutrition Summit and Awards. And now I would like to call on stage with a big round of applause our honorable moderator for the panel, Dr. Anamika Gulati, Head Quality Food Division, LT Foods. Anamika ji, warm welcome to you for the India Food Nutrition Summit and Awards. Anamika ji, all over to you. And as always, I'm sure the panel is an excellent hand of yours, and it's going to be a fantastic session with you and all the panel members. So wishing you all the best for a fantastic session. Thank you.
Thank you. So thank you, Synnex, for giving this opportunity. Again, I think we are sitting on this dais after 2.5 years. Last we met in November or December 2019. So with this new open COVID, yes, and fantastic topic on nutraceutical and dietary supplements. And post-COVID, yes, everybody is very serious about their health, their immunity, and what they are eating it. So food, nutraceuticals are in the epicenter of everybody's life. And yes, at the same time, when we are getting the benefits, we are also getting a lot of challenges. Challenge is if some nutraceutical product is working well and it is a combination of 12 to 13 herbs, so whether which herb is working. So this is what we are discussing with our panel members. Our esteemed members are here, and we can get the answer for these questions. So if something is coming, analytically, if some peak is, we are getting some peak and we are giving it in the product, but whether that bioavailability is there or not, whether that product is working in the gut. So there are a lot of challenges, lot of questions. And at the same time, when we are talking about this nutraceutical, dietary supplements, food, again, the thing is contaminants. And I think this is the top story in many of the newspaper every day we see. Why exports are reducing due to pesticide residue. Some product is banned in some countries due to antibiotic presence. This product cannot be exported or cannot be allowed by regulatory due to heavy metal contents, or some salmonella infestation has taken up and license was cancelled. So these are the routinely news which we focus on, the naturally occurring toxins or the aflatoxins in peanuts, lot many. So every day we are reading in the newspapers. So to start with, definitely this is a very, very challenging topic and very interesting one also. To start with, I will call on Dr. Ranjan Mitra to set the context on analytical testing to identify and at the same time quantify nutrients in the ingredients which are used. Thank you so much, and over to you.
Thank you very much for letting me start this, and thank you, Synnex, for actually this opportunity to attend in-person seminar after 2.5 years. So it means a lot to be in touch with all the group scientists and all the people of the technological background. So this is a very interesting topic and very close to my heart. Analytical is something which I have been doing for a very long time. And analytical in nutrition is something which is even more interesting and challenging. Because what happens is that when you are talking about pharma, you have to remember about that there is a excipient which you can really wash out. That means it does not contribute to nutrients. However, when you come to a food, your matrix itself is contributing to a lot many nutrients. Now, there are techniques that you need to apply on, and as we said, that the challenges are there to understand and quantify each and every nutrient. And the complex situation that is becoming more complex is that India is now opening up, and there are foods coming in across from all the parts of the world. And we need to really, it's a confluence of all of these ingredients, and that makes it more complicated. Now, if you think about the food, the most basic tests that we can do is things like titration and all of those. Wish the life was that simple and we could have got all of those answers just by doing titrations and other thing. But unfortunately, we don't get those answers because there are interferences in them. Then we go on to our next category is that we need separation. That means we need chromatographic separations in terms of trying to see what are the nutrients, and we can clearly differentiate between the peaks and very clearly think about it. Now, this is also great because if you are doing a fortification, then you are doing it in a significant amount that you will be able to differentiate each other. But again, a lot of nutrients will interfere with each other, and the matrix itself will interfere with each other. Then how do you really do that? Then the problem that comes in is that you have a lot many things going on at the background. You need then the accuracy of something called a mass. If you now take a mass spec, first of all, it's expensive. And then if you have a mass spec, of course, based on the mass accuracy, you will be able to differentiate between them. And then you will be able to get that spectra. So you can use LCMS-MS, GCMS-MS, and all the other mass spec techniques. I'll come to the herbal part a little later because that's another story which is very, very interesting and very close to what I do in my day-to-day life. So, but if you even talk about the normal herbal part, mass gives you an indication of it. Now, the problem comes is that all of this is great when you know what you're looking for. Because you're doing a targeted analysis, you have known that these are the thing that you're looking for. But when you're looking at contaminants, the fraudsters are always ahead than you. They will always be ahead than you. So you need to find a way to be ahead of them. And how do we really do that? Suppose you already develop a methodology and you know that this is the contaminant A. And you develop a methodology and you will do a great job in analyzing it at a PPB level also. However, once the fraudster knows that it's a contaminant, it's a known contaminant, they will just remove that. And there are so many techniques to remove it. So that's not a problem at all. So they will get removed. Then still you are a spurious product, but without that compound that you are looking for. Then what happens is that you will think that it is a pseudo negative, and then you will go for that's the right thing. But it's not. Then what do? Then from a targeted approach, you have to go to an untargeted approach. And this transition itself is a big thing. And it's a big change, you know. From the mentality from the days when we were in the school and when we were doing our PhDs, we are all taught to think about targeted approach. Because you are after a molecule, you are going after the molecule, you know how to get it, and you know how to do it. However, right now, targeted is one domain, but untargeted has become the actual buzzword and the most important part of it. In the untargeted, what you do, you actually look around the entire spectra. And you don't depend on one marker. You depend on markers like 5 or 6 markers. Now, any fraudster will not be able to take 5 or 6 markers of it. And even if they are doing it, it will be economically absolutely non-viable to do that. So it has to be economically viable to do adulteration, right? Otherwise, there's no point of doing an adulteration. So then once you are going from an targeted to an untargeted approach, things like HRMS can be there, NMR can be there, and there are so many other techniques that you can be using it. Now, I will briefly touch upon the herbal part. Herbal part, if you are taking a single herb, then things are easier, much easier, because you will have monographs like USP, and where you can really look up the monographs, and you can look at the marker compounds, and you can quantify them, everything grows great. But just imagine what happens if the product is made out of 10 herbs. 10 herbs and all markers, it will be really a challenging job, a very interesting job for an analytical scientist, but challenging because you have to remember that you have to also do a QC after that. Once you're making it on a regular basis, you have to have a QC check on that. So then things like HPTLC comes in. But when you're doing an HPTLC, what will happen is that you will have a limited number of theoretical plates. You will not be able to really differentiate or separate out all of those techniques. GC, LC will be also a challenge. Then things like LC, MSMS, or higher techniques has to be used on. But what I would really like to conclude on in my thing is, do not go after the methodology as such. Understand what are you looking for. What is the purpose of your analysis? Once you understand that, it's much easier to understand what type of approach and methodology we need to look at. Because if we start with a methodology and think that, okay, this is the highest methodology and this should give us everything, every answers, no, you will not get an answers. You have to do orthogonal confirmation for a lot of different things. One technique cannot give you the answers. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Dr. Ranjan. So definitely from a targeted approach to what we are looking for, which molecule we have to see, and what is the matrix, what is the combination. So this is what we are going to see. So our approach should be based on that, not on that high-end method will give us the results. So from there, we will move to Dr. Kriti Soni, and she will throw some light on stability and shelf life studies of nutraceuticals and dietary supplements.
Yeah, thank you so much. So I would like to start with what stability studies are exactly and how they are important. So as we lay a lot of stress as formulators in putting a product together, rationalizing the ingredients, seeing what kind of amounts of each active and ingredients we need to have in a product. Similarly, in order to maintain the efficacy of the product throughout its entire shelf life, it's very important to conduct a stability study in a proper manner. And this has to be integrated with the package, the container closure system, and how the integrity of the product is maintained throughout its shelf life, whatever you are writing on the product. So that has to be done in a very systematic manner, so that whatever we have as a claim on the product in terms of its constituents, whether they are vitamins or minerals, or they are in terms of the phytoactives that we are putting in a product, it's very important to do these studies in a very elaborate manner, along with, of course, the entire system that the product is going to be in for that entire shelf life. So throwing a light on that, I would like to here, diversify those products into two categories. We've been discussing about different matrices in terms of the food products. So food products, as we understand today, they can be any form. They can be starting from gummies, bars, or chewables in terms of snacks, whatever. You can provide nutrition in a very innovative format, which a lot of companies today are doing. Fortification of food in different kinds of matrices. So that is one of the forms where, we basically ensure that we are providing essential nutrients to the consumers. And apart from that, there is a combination of herbal ingredients and these vitamins and minerals, which as a nutraceutical product is presented to the consumers. But as we go into the complexities of these products, the profiling of the actives, the profiling of these vitamins and minerals becomes more and more complicated, which Dr. Ranjan just mentioned about different techniques and how we have to ensure that we are, able to analyze them, isolate them. So these, when we talk about these herbal ingredients, each single herbal ingredient, let's, for example, talk about curcumin or ginger or any other herb, for example, which goes into our nutraceuticals today. They are, combination of thousands of molecules sitting out there. Out of them, some of them are bioactive compounds, which are essential for the activity of that molecule and of that herb, per se. And rest of them are, the other phytoactives that are just sitting out there. But according to the Ayurvedic principles and others, they are also playing an important role in the activity of the compound. And others are the enriched fractions. Like, for example, we use 95% enriched curcuminoid complex in a product. So then that is the peak that will be present in the maximum amount. But in order to isolate that peak, we cannot negate the rest of them. And of course, when the product is exposed to different conditions during its shelf life, be it elevated temperatures like we see in north today, we have temperature around 49 degrees Celsius some days back, which was extreme. So how we are ensuring that the products or the herbs or the ingredients that are there in the product are stable in those adverse conditions or those conditions where the product is meant to be. So as per ICH, we all been conducting these studies in our industries all the time, where we do real-time accelerated stability study, intermediate stability study, stress testing. So all of this has to be done in a very, very proper manner. And I would say, in order to make sure that these products are tested in a proper way, a proper analytical technique which ensures that the phytoactives are there for the entire shelf life is very, very important. So along with that, the another aspect which comes is in-use product stability study. So when a product is being used, whether it is being, after opening, it is being kept in outside in the ambient environment, or whether it is kept in a refrigerator. So all of those instructions for the consumer have to be, determined only after these studies are done, so that you are particularly or completely aware that whatever you are claiming on the product is there for the entire use, and consumers are getting the benefit out of it. Talking about that, the zones as per ICH have to be clearly defined, whether which country you are sending the product to, whether it is meant for Indian market or outside. So the zones have to be very clearly laid out. And of course, we'll be talking in depth about the contaminants. So when we talk about these stability studies, as a starting point, it's very important that we measure everything in the raw material, because that is a part of our HACCP also, that you ensure that the raw material which is taken has been tested for its heavy metal, pesticides, aflatoxin content. The microbiology, of course, has to be done through the entire shelf life studies. But it's very, I would say it's an integral part that all these are done in a very proper manner with proper sensitive instruments and methodologies which ensure that you get proper results, and whatever you are trying to deliver to your consumer is finally delivered at the end of it. So yeah, over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Kriti. So stability and shelf life plays a very important role, and how we analyze it through real time or accelerated or stress test, or picking up the samples from the market, how they are kept it, and then analyzing the same, and then what we are claiming it on the label. So these are very important, and at the same time, what storage conditions we are putting it on the label, and accordingly, after opening of the packet, the content or the ingredient contains those bioactives are present in that or not. These are studies are taken care before the product launch is there. So next I will invite Rajeev Tyagi. He will focus more on the adulteration, which is a very serious issue, and the contaminants detections in food and ingredients. Over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Anamika and Synnex, for giving this opportunity. And really good to see here entire crowd from the virtual to the physical. It's really give us a platform where we can interact one-to-one and as well as on this platform. So well, the topic, the adulteration and the testing, it's a very interesting topic, and let me start with the testing. I think if the consumer is healthy and disease-free, no testing is required. The problem starts when the consumer start facing the disease, he is unhealthy, and then we start looking at the testing, what it is causing for. Now, as started with the Dr. Mitra and then Dr. Soni, there are two challenges. One is the parameter which are listed. I think it is still easy to find out the technology which we have to find out. And there is unknown devil, which is kind of the method development by the various techniques. But however, even in the known parameters, it is kind of the list when we see outside the laboratory and the quality control, how painful is to, choose the sample metrics, sample preparations, and the technique. So you see the huge list. Well, I will start in the whole testing. The basic thing, the pH and the conductivity play the very important role. When we talk about the pH value, when we talk about the conductivity, various things we can really think of where we are heading about it. Then the next parameter we talk about is the moisture contents. And the moisture content play a very, very important role in the food. We can use Kalfisser titrator as a technique, which will give you the moisture content 100 ppm and above. And if you are talking about moisture content lesser than 50 ppb, you can use the technology like a coulometer technique. So these two techniques will help a lot in many industries where we are talking about the moisture analysis. Again, going back to the testing, what we are talking here is the organized sector. The organized sector is just 12% of the total food sector. And in the 12% also we are talking about the quality delivery and the quality testing about it. So we also have the challenges. We can use various techniques from the titration to the LCMS, MS, ICP, ICP-MS, MS, and HPTLC and various techniques. But the challenges is the investment also. But with the help of the new technologies, I will say the cost of the high-tech instrument is reducing, and where you can do more parameters with the single instruments, and rather than choosing the different instrument. For example, HPLC, everybody knows that HPLC is a technique for the separation, as Dr. Mitra said, to identify and to separate it. But it is not easy to choose the column. It is not easy to choose the eluent. It is not easy to separate all the compounds. And still you are missing some inorganic, you are missing some anions, you are missing some basic, contaminants, which is very, very difficult to identify with the same HPLC. When we go deeper, we can use ionography as a technique. For example, I'm talking about sulfite content. So the sulfite is the basic preservative used to prevent the oxidation or the browning of the samples. Now this sulfite is being used with most of the industries as a preservative. We can do this analysis by the ionography. Now ionography also can do the carbohydrates, whether it is in your herbal products or whether it is in your regular products. And when we look at the instrument, we look at can I do the entire periodic table by the single technique? This is not possible. But however, the challenges are the sample preparation. And for any laboratory, the challenges are how do I prepare a sample from the herbal, from the juice, from the milk, from the meat, or from the fish sample. Now today the technology has come up like technique like dialysis, where you can directly keep your milk or the juice, and without any sample preparation, you can do the analysis in terms of the anions or in terms of the cations or in terms of the various other parameters. Otherwise, the same samples, a lab chemist has to spend huge time only for the sample preparation, because instrument does not see what kind of the sample it is. You can insert a pure water, or you can insert a contaminated one, or the something which has contained the high organics. But if this is taken care as a sample preparation, I think instrument become the easy job. So therefore, from the pH to titration to the chromatography, these are the techniques which you can choose, which can help you into the faster and the less economical conditions. Further, I will talk more on the now spectroscopy, which is non-destructive techniques. Now slowly you have seen more and more that the conventional Raman, which was huge in investment, costing 1.5 crore, has been reduced now to the 1/4 of the cost. And if you can develop a library of the known compound, not the unknown one, as Dr. Mitra says, so I'm just talking toward the first solution, which is known one. Once we create the direct library, we can do various analyses, likely direct pesticide analysis on the vegetables and the foods. You don't need any sample preparations. You can just find it directly. For example, rheodine, which is used for the making chili red. Now you want to do this analysis whether you're done. You can simply choose a Raman spectroscopy and you can do direct analysis. So therefore, when we see today from the chromatography to the spectroscopy, things are changing and you can do raw sample, you can do finished products, and you don't need the sample preparation techniques. However, these are the certain things which with the experience which I am informing you, still there is a black box which need a method development, and we can always discuss it, how do the sample preparation technique to be done for those. Thank you. Sorry, in between, Dr. Soni mentioned about the self-life. Again, it is a vast topic, but some solution can be in the form of the Renzi mat. Now, for example, we pick up biscuits, ghees, chocolate, noodles, edible oils. To find out the self-life, I think we need to do the lot of sample preparation and then go for each and every parameter, and then we declare the self-life. So there is an instrument called Renzi mat. I can stimulate the condition of the sample, and then within 25 to 30 minutes, we can define with the various temperature range how the conductivity breaks, and then we correlate with the self-life and we define, okay, it is going to last for 1 year or 6 months or 3 months. So with this kind of the techniques, we are able to reduce the sample analysis time and more is sample preparation time. So this can help in the self-life. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Rajeev Tyagi, for giving us an insight on adulteration and contamination. But at the same time, we are facing lot of challenges. If a same sample is sent to 3 or 5 labs, we get different results. Sometimes 2 labs give failed results. Then how to move about it? This is one of the challenge. And second challenge is when on 15th August 21, Prime Minister announced the Fortification program and rolled out this Fortification program in a huge way in the country, covering all PDS and MDS system. Here also we are facing lot of problems. Whether the oil is having vitamin A or D, or milk is having the same amount which was added into it at the point when the consumer uses it. Similarly, in the case of rice and wheat also, whether it contains the iron or vitamin B12, folic acid in the same proportion in which they are added, or some overages are to be added. And if overages has to be added, what should be the percentage of overages? So I think I will again go back to Dr. Ranjan and Rajeev to answer these questions. Okay, how to mitigate this type of challenges?
Well, the part of the discussion of the testing. So as I mentioned, for example, herbs. Now herbs may have more than one active ingredients, and we don't know which of the active gradient is working actually. As Dr. Anamika said, it can be 2, it can be 3, it can be 5. Now going back to the testing is, one is that we take out the known list. I will always choose as a testing from the known list. The unknown is again the method development and to see the various technique, whether I use MS, I use chromatography, or I use titration, and then I need to optimize that which one is working for the unknown one. But when I say the sample matrix, yes, it depends upon the separation. So if there are more than 5 ingredients, I will definitely choose chromatography as a technique, ionography as a technique, where I use the particular column and I am able to select a particular each active gradient or analyte and separate them well, and after that detection is decided. Now detection, there are various detection in the chromatography. It can be conductivity, it can be UV, it can be electrochemical. Even I want to emphasize on the electrochemical. Most of the the lab people, they will be using the refractive index, RI detector. But it is very cumbersome because you will be choosing a particular refractive index, then you will be optimizing it, and then you will be doing the stability test. But if you use the pulse amperometry help you the fast detection, and there is no such parameter setting required what you do with the RI. So the selectivity and the sensitivity is much higher with the pulse amperometry than the your RI detector. So here, when you have the more ingredients, I will emphasize more towards the chromatography, and maybe Dr. Mitra can contribute further.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, some very interesting points have been raised. First is lab-to-lab variation. So that's a topic we can discuss the entire day and it will not get over. It's a love and hate relationship between when you send a sample. Once you get a sample which is all passing, it's all a love relationship. When it fails, it's a hate relationship. But when it passes, the trouble starts there actually. You know, you should never take a pass for a pass because, as you said, it may pass in one lab, it may fail in the other lab, right? So, of course, as I was also part of AOSA India, and this always is a very important part that we need to do it, you know. And that is the reason why, and I will tell another story, you know, Dr. Anamika, you send a vitamin analysis to one lab, they will do it for 200 rupees. You send it for another lab, they do it for 2,000 rupees, right? The same vitamin, right? Same sample, same vitamin, two labs, one charging 2,000 rupees, one charging 200 rupees. And now I get questioned if I send it, I get questioned by my management if I send the samples to a lab which charges 2,000 rupees, right?
Yes.
So why do you really want to waste the money of the company, right? So there are a few aspects we really need to know. Outsourcing is more difficult. You know, outsourcing is much more difficult. I have a very well-furnished lab, and so I love doing it in-house, and that's given me solace, sleep well at night. But if I have to depend on outsourcing, it's very difficult. And there are a few things that we need to really take care of. If you're outsourcing, first make sure you talk to the lab, understand that methodology first. Then ask for them for certificates, not just the NABL and other certificates. Ask them how they have performed on their PTs. So proficiency testing is something, if a lab is not doing it, do not go for the lab. Absolutely don't go for that lab. So if a lab has to participate in international PTs, not ILCs, not interlab comparisons, they have to go to international PTs. And if they are able to pass all those international PTs, then that shows something. Again, ask for them what type of flow they are doing. Are they using a certified reference material while they are analyzing it? Ask for the certified reference materials, COA, and also their analysis certificate. Ask for the chromatograms. You have to do the due diligence, you know. If you don't do it, then you will land up with a situation like one lab giving a right data and the other lab not giving a right data, right? But the onus is on you. The onus is not on the lab. You might think that the onus is on the lab, but it's not. The product is yours. The reputation is yours. The lab has some stake in it. However, the stake is bigger for you. If you are sending the samples, please do take care of that. Second thing that is important is about the fortification and the overages. Of course, Dr. Nikita will be able to say that because she will be able to talk about a lot of many fortifications and how she struggles with the fact of putting them on the back of the pack. But you know what happens is every ingredient degrades. We need to know about it. And we need to understand that the degradation pattern of each and every ingredient. And it's not same for every matrices. It is different for different matrices. So we need to understand what Dr. Soni was also saying, you know, stability becomes a so important parameter. She also touched upon a very important point that the methodology should be right, you know. There is two types of methodologies. One is just an assay methodology. That means you're understanding the content of something. However, sometimes that methodology cannot be used for stability analysis. If you are using an assay methodology for stability analysis, you may be in for a lot of fun later on. And when you understand that things are not going the right way, you need to adopt a stability indicating methodology. Stability indicating methodology means that your analyte and your potential degradant products are well separated in that chromatographic conditions. For example, if you have a vitamin C, and vitamin C is degrading. However, if the degradants are right, forming at the same level at where your peak is coming, you will never see the degradation happening. You will be very happy that my vitamin C is absolutely constant. However, if you use the right technique, a stability indicating technique, then what will happen is that you will see that your actual peak is coming down and your degradant peak is coming up. So that is how you have to be very careful. The onus is on you. Again, I would reiterate, you have to use a very important, a fit-for-purpose methodology. Again, that's a huge topic. I'll not go into that. However, fit-for-purpose methodology is something which you absolutely have to use it. You need to know what methodology has to be used for what purpose and for which matrices. Then and only then we will be able to come up with, be able to resolve a little bit of what the problem is. Of course, there will be so many other problems that will be there. And actually, without those problems, a lot of our jobs will not be there. So it's good to have problems, and we have to actually be solving them as we go along.
Yeah, thank you. And yes, fit to use methodology. And at the same time, we have to understand the product well, understand the matrices, understand the ingredient well. Because in my experience also, we suffered with a product getting failed, rejected by the exporting country. And then we used all sorts of high-end analytical methods to analyze what is going wrong. But when we worked on, as Dr. Ranjan and Rajeev said, when we worked on moisture and water activity only, and it clicked, and we win the battle. So yes, we have to understand the product and what methodology and what is going behind that, which is causing the problem, is the main crux. So now inviting Nitika to throw some light on practical challenges of stability and testing of nutraceutical and food products.
Thank you so much. I would like to thank Synnex Group and all the partners who've got us to the same platform after 2.5 years. We've got an opportunity to interact with each one of us and what we've gone through in the last 2 years and the challenges, because in the last 2 years, nutraceuticals have gained a lot of attention. And if you look at the market right now, there are about a number of products which are getting launched every day. You just open nutraceutical world and you'll see. And I'm just talking about India market. I'm not talking about the global market as of now. While we've heard all our technical experts speaking here, I'll tell you where the problem arises from. It arises from the nutrition team of the company. And we are the people who actually trouble all the analytical people, because our job is to give something different, which of course initiates from the market. So the marketing team comes to us and tells us that we need to create a differentiator. Now, how do you create a differentiator? You can't create a differentiator with the known products, which we have been talking about. We have to create the differentiator with the unknown products, which are scientifically studied and make some sense to the consumer, where we can talk about new things. Now, it's been about 45 minutes where we're talking about the stability. Now, stability of the nutraceutical products, trust me, is very difficult. Stability is a parameter, which is a testing which we in our R&D would do to know the shelf life, how the product will perform. Now, thanks to the e-commerce industry, where shelf life has become the main parameter to launch your product on their site, the first pressure which all of us face is the shelf life studies, basically the shelf life of the product. Any nutraceutical, the minimum they come up to us is 9 months. Trust me, it's just 9 months, which is not easy with the amount of actives we are putting in. For a medicine, it will be a month, 1 active or a 2 active. If you pick up any product which is getting launched today, 40 herbs, made with 40 herbs, made with 25 vitamins and minerals. What's happening inside that product is actually important. And that's what practically we all deal in day out when we are sitting at R&D. Now, stability, nutraceutical can be categorized for capsules, which has nothing to do with taste. But when I come to powders, when I come to the other formats which are just evolving in the market, the taste is also an important parameter. And while we are testing stability, it's not just the nutrients which are important, it's also in the 9 months what happens to that nutrient, what happens to that herb, how does it impact the taste. I think Dr. Monica in the morning was actually talking about how difficult it is to analyze vitamin D. Trust me, that's the most important fortificant we add to all the nutraceuticals because of the bone health, because of the immunity. But when I send my product for testing, I don't get any result. So now what do I do? What do I do with my nutrition labeling? Because I'm the custodian of that nutrition labeling. If FSSAI questions me, I have to showcase a product. Now it says 15% of the RDA you can claim vitamin D. But, and that too in 100 grams or 100 ml. And if you want to create, say it's rich in vitamin D, it's 30%. But when it goes for testing, I think all the people sitting here will actually agree that we are unable to extract it from the matrix. And a classic example, we can give it for an emulsion of an oil. Very difficult to extract vitamin D and get it. So how do I claim it on the pack? And trust me, sitting here, a lot of people from the nutrition team or analytical team, they just struggle how we convert our theoretical values and substantiate with the practical, the analytical values, which are coming from 3 different labs with 3 different results. Now we are sitting and thinking, what do we do? Now these are for the known, and what about the unknown? Most of the labs give up their hands and say, we don't have a method to analyze it. And that's where we actually sit on the theoretical data and understand what we give on the pack. End of the shelf life, we will have to sit on those theoretical values and understand what happens after 9 months. And that's why yesterday also I said this particular nutraceutical which is dietary supplement, needs a lot of research by eminent companies. Like said, a lot of companies will not be able to afford that 2,000K. The testing parameters there are, the amount of money which goes in analysis, trust me, it's too much, because we need to have 3 reports to validate. Every company has their own USP to do it, while we have 3 analytical reports from 3 different labs, and it's very difficult for us. So that's the major challenge which comes in, and practically we all are facing. I'm sure a lot of people sitting here will understand what I'm saying, because converting anything which is there on back of the panel, which decides your front of the panel and the USP of your product, is highly questionable. Thank you so much for the question.
Thank you. So when we are discussing on vitamin D or vitamin A or vitamin B12, so it says that it degrades. Everything has its own life. So it cannot be mixed like that. So can it be encapsulated? If it is encapsulated, whether it is bioavailable and whether it will come in the analytical reports. So I think Rajeev can answer to this question. What should be the delivery vehicles for vitamins?
See, vitamin D is any vitamin which is water soluble, we can easily do with the ionography or with the other technique. But vitamin D is not water soluble. So therefore, we have to optimize it with the specific column, either with the HPLC or with the mass. Because if the sample is soluble in the water, it is easier to do with the chromatography. So I will say for the vitamin D, we have to choose either HPLC specific column, or we have to go for the mass spectroscopy. Yes.
Kriti, if you will throw some light on packaging and its interaction with the product.
Thank you for the question. So packaging is, like I said, a very important part of the entire product, because it is in direct contact with the product for the entire shelf life, and it is the one protecting your product from any kind of degradation. Like we've been speaking about different kinds of degradation. There can be photolytic degradation, there can be oxidation happening in the product, there can be moisture which may lead to other problems like microbial contamination in the product. So all of this has to be, I would say, one has to be very mindful of that while designing the packaging, and ensuring that packaging is secure enough, or it is tamper proof, it is made in such a way, or it is there with the product in such a way that it ensures that the integrity or the stability of the product is maintained throughout the shelf life. And at the same time, it should not be leaching out things into the product which might hamper the safety of the product. So like for example, if we talk about food industry and pharma, we've been using glass for a very long time. We understand that glass is the most inert material, but there might be a scenario where the glass is recycled, or the glass has some ions in it which might leach into the product and hamper the stability of the product. So these are the things that one has to be very, very careful of. There can be other scenarios wherein you are, like we all know about the classic case of Cadbury, which happened, like when the packaging was not sturdy enough at some point of time, when there were moisture leaching into the product, there was moisture going into the product leading to microbial contamination. So that is something that that has to be tested throughout the shelf life study. And of course, it should also be taken care that as a part of the regulation, although regulations are not that targeted as we know it today, the number of contaminants that we know today, but we are now seeing methyl mercury as one of the contaminants, heavy metals. Melamine has also been now tested, So all of these, along with some of the ions that I just spoke about, these ions can be catalysts to multiple reactions that can happen into a product. So that is also very, very important. Talking about the packaging, like I said, that it has to ensure that the product is safe and stable throughout the entire shelf life. It has to also ensure that there are no damages happening to the product throughout its transit. So transit trials have to be done with the product with appropriate control measures to see what kind of temperature fluctuations it went through while the transit. Like for example, you can put a data logger and see what happened during the entire chain of events when it was shipped from the warehouse till it reached the consumer. So those trials really give you an insight into what is happening to the product in the actual scenario. And apart from that, is the packaging sturdy enough to maintain the product or to hold the product throughout that cycle and even after that. So like I say, this kind of a packaging, or say for example a bar or a nutritional gummy which is packed into a pillow packet. So what kind of material is of the pillow pack? Because that is something which is in direct contact with the product. That is the primary package. And then comes the secondary and tertiary packaging, which are added to reinforce the entire package that you have. So all of these testings, I would say the final package and whether it is able to protect your product in such a way that no additional ingredients are leaching out into it and it is stable and safe throughout its journey is very important. And in order to do that, you have to actually start from the beginning. You have to start from the material that you are using for the packaging, ensuring that there are no leachables out of there, the material is properly, is a food grade material, it has proper standards. It has gone through proper testing so that the additional work that you have to do at the end of it when the product is in the stability testing, you have to be sure about the number of tests that you have to do on the product from the very beginning, because it starts from somewhere. It starts from the initial material that you are selecting. And likewise, depending on the nature of the product, whether, like I said, that ghee is mostly packed in our glass containers. And, most of the companies have now moved to, because of the breakages happening in the glasses, they are now moving to carton packs with, sachets inside, which are properly sealed and locked in order to ensure that the ghee doesn't get exposed to oxidation. It doesn't go bad or rancid during the entire period it is kept on the shelf and delivered to the consumer. So that has to be very, very well assessed even before you launch that particular packaging. There are a lot of packaging innovations happening. So again, like the innovation is all the time good, but it has to justify whether that innovation is either in the direction of preventing the tamper or preventing some kind of degradation that can happen to the product. So on and all, I would say that some companies end up spending more on the packaging. There are companies who, I would not name any of them, but there are companies who spend a lot on packaging to ensure that the product is safe and stable. And that really adds to the expenses of the product as well, because we as consumers also have to, bear that burden of additional packaging. But at the end of it, we have to also understand that that is for our benefit only. So yeah, that is something that I would like to say in this matter.
Thank you. So, safe, food safe packaging along with the printing ink also, like the latest regulation on that phthalates and toluene-free inks should be used, and MOSH, MOA and POSOMD testings are going to be done for the packaging material. At the same time, when we are talking about allergens, so that the list is long. Some countries say it is 8 allergens, some says it is more than 14 plus. So allergen is also one of the major food contaminants in the nutraceuticals food industry, and we have to take care from the how the material is procured from the field up to the various processing aids we are using during the processing of the product, and then at the final stages. If you want to say something on the allergen testing.
One is the allergen testing. I already mentioned like example of sulfite, which is preservative, and it is also it can also experience the allergen, and it is a now simple analysis by the ionography, which is difficult by any of the other techniques. So most of the ions which are allergen, this can be done by the ionography with the simple ionography technique. That is just a quick answer to you. I would also like to answer what the topic was raised as a sample analysis from the different labs. Now, apart from the instrumentation, it is the, again going back to the sample preparation, which talk about the chemical used. Now, one side, Dr. Mitra said, 200 rupees sample analysis, and other side, 2000 rupees. So it also depends upon which buffers they are using, what standard they are using, what is the cost of those buffers and the chemicals they use. If I do the X chemical on the same instrument and the other high quality chemicals on the same instrument, the results will differ. Even in the simple, the basic thing, the lab water which we use, if the lab water quality varies from one lab to the other lab, I don't think we can get the same results. Apart from the sample, whether it is contaminated or not contaminated, that becomes the second part. But we already contaminate something which is out of the sample, and then it gets added to your analysis. So therefore, the basic investment in the good chemicals, in the lab water, and then we talk about the instrumentation and the sample preparation. So sometimes we invest too high, but we don't invest in the good buffers, chemicals, sample preparation, including small pipettes in the lab. We compromise those costs, but we invest huge on the high-end equipment. So I think it has to be balanced situation. And second part is the validation. So if a lab with 200 rupees using the same chemicals, everything, I have to look what kind of the validation you are doing it. So generally when I follow the AOAC method, I am talking about the reproducibility, I am talking about the repeatability, I am talking about 6 injections for one sample and then validating it. So if we follow the SOPs entirely from the sample preparation to the chemicals to the instrumentation and the validation, the result differentiation will be minimized. Otherwise, definitely we will have the same peaks depending upon the cost which we invest. 200 small peak, 2000 bigger peak. So we can minimize those things by optimizing the whole analysis.
Thank you so much. So I think we can conclude that we have to understand our product, understand the matrices, understand what we have to use, what is our target approach, which molecules we are behind, which methods and which labs we are using, what is the Z score of that lab, what is the PT score, and how proficient or efficient the lab analysis persons are. And based on that, we can win this battle.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Anamika ji. And can we have a big round of applause for this wonderful panel here? And in the interest of the time, because I'm standing between you and the lunch, and of course, we have to keep the time interest in mind, but I will not miss out the opportunity of you all asking any questions. So in the interest of time, we can take only 2 questions. Apologies, we'll not be able to take more. So we have one question from the lady in the front. Can we have one mic for her? Madam, request you to kindly be brief and precise. And please do mention the name of the...
So my first question is to Dr. Kriti. So you talked about whenever we are using any of the raw materials, so you have to do the testing for all the raw materials for heavy metals, etc. So can we, if we are getting the COAs from the raw material suppliers, is that sufficient, or we have to do like as a manufacturer of a nutraceutical, wherein we are mixing 10 different raw ingredients? So is it required to be done at our end also, or is the supplier COA sufficient enough?
So what I would like to add as a, say as a practice, because, I complete that process, vendor validation and ensuring the labs where these testings are done, like, you are doing the entire end-to-end, like we were discussing, that the onus is on you. So you have to make sure that your vendor is not changing frequently, and where the vendor is getting those ingredients tested, that lab is having those sufficient accreditations. If that is happening, that can be one of the strategies to look at it. The other could be if at all your the raw material supplier and everything is not changing, you can fix a frequency. Like how frequently you are procuring that material, you can actually fix a frequency that, you will randomly either test this material at this frequency, or, maybe because anytime when the vendor changes, this entire due diligence has to be done again. So that onus again, I would say, is on you, that you ensure that the lab is appropriate where the test is being done, their methods are validated enough, sensitive enough, they're following all the protocols. So if that diligence can be done, then you can, do that at a particular frequency in-house, or by doing it through a third party at your end.
Yeah.
Thank you so
quick
much.
Second question for Dr. Ranjan, please. So Dr. Ranjan, you said you're going to touch on herbal, but I think we couldn't do much on the herbal. So again, if it's a food matrix wherein you have carbs, fats, proteins, others, and you are adding some herbal ingredients just for the functional benefits like green tea extracts, etc. So what are the testing method one should apply in order to give the label value for the green tea extract, say for example?
Suppose you want to standardize the product with respect to green tea, then you have to have a marker for the green tea. Then what you can do is that based on what amount you're adding, you can claim that marker. However, if you're claiming that marker, please ensure that, as Dr. Kriti also said for the other question, is that how do you ensure that each and every batch is correct? Because you are depending on a supplier for your base product, your ingredient, right? So and testing is not the answer, though that is what I do for my living, so I'm saying what I should not be saying. But then testing is not the answer to anything of this. Because if we test everything, then there is nothing to sell and nothing to eat, right? We cannot sell everything, test everything. So the answer lies in risk assessment. You have to actually do your risk assessment right. You have to know what your risks are. And based on all the other facts that you have done a vendor audit, you have done your vendor qualification right, you have done few batches, you do random testing, and all of these, when you standardize it, then you can be well certain that your risk is very minimal. There cannot be a scenario where your risk is zero. Let's be practical and let's be pragmatic about it, that there cannot be a condition where the risk is zero. We have to minimize the risk, and that will depend on your risk assessment. I hope I answered your question.
Thank you so much, Dr. Mitra. And ladies and gentlemen, can we have a big round of applause for this fantastic panel here? I would request the panel members to kindly be on stage, and I would like to call on stage Mr. Praveen Arya from Allergen Technologies, one of the pioneers in the food safety and food nutrition when it comes to providing the best of the testing solutions and techniques and instruments. So Praveen, welcome to the India Food Nutrition Summit and Awards, and if you would kindly do the honors. request the panel members to quickly pose for a group photograph along with Praveen also. And a big round of applause to all the panel members, Dr. Ranjan Mitra, Dr. Kriti, Soni, Nitika, Vig, Rajeev, Tyagi ji, and of course Dr. Gulati for wonderfully moderating this panel session. Thank you so much, honorable panel members, and thank you so much, Praveen, for doing the honors. It was indeed a fantastic session.